You're welcome back to the program. And tonight we bring you part two of our analysis of the newly launched National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. It's the fifth of its kind since 1960, and it's the successor to the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan 2017 to 2020. And to do that with us, we're joined on Sunday Politics by Dr. Sarah Alade. She's a special advisor to the President on Finance and the Economy. She's Chairman, Central Working Group of NDP, and former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Dr. Alade, it's good to have you on the program, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you too. And thank you for having me.
Right. I must say that we're glad you're feeling much better because we had that conversation earlier in the week and you were a bit under the weather. So it's good to know you're better now to continue the work of the nation. So we had that conversation a few days ago. We had guests on the program. A lot of them picked holes in the National Development Plan. So I'd like you to listen to some of the things they said, as well as our viewers. I'd like them to listen so we can continue the conversation from that point. So please take a listen.
ERGP for me was, and according to what they put in the document, was a plan that hinged itself on three basic tenets, which was one, to create an economic stability program that would stabilize the economy. Was the economy stable from 2016 to today? No. The dollar is still today at 530 naira. So how have you been able to stabilize the monetary aspect of our economy? Let's talk about the physical aspect. If we're talking about its plan to empower Nigerians, as he said, in areas of agriculture, healthcare, and all that. Which healthcare can we say that this government has delivered to Nigerians? Are you talking about this insecurity Nigerians have to face if you are going to make investments in agriculture today?
They have no demonstrated capacity or competence or result-oriented organization. There's no good governance, that you can point to. Look at, you started with even giving us, insecurity, situations that by the day is getting worse and worse. So how you ask whether the name of Nigerians are written in this report? None. There's no Nigerian's name that's written in this report in the plan, because security is basic to every human being. That is number one. A requirement, of every human, human needs, that you are secured. Your physical needs is provided for, but that is absent in this government.
Let's move this
so that's
on
why
now.
I believe the plan is just something that is used for campaigning.
So, Dr. Alade, quite a number of points raised. But let me begin from the question I actually asked first that day, asking about just how much of the 200 million Nigerians' names are captured in that National Development Plan. Mr. Sani Yabagi thinks no Nigerian is on that plan. No Nigerian's name is on that plan. But you are part of the team that put it together. Is that indeed the fact?
No, that is not true. And I do hope that people get to read the documents to know that Nigerians, the development plan is actually meant for Nigerians. And the names, if he wants the name, the names of Nigerians are captured in the plan. The plan is, has. Let me start from where he stopped on what the ERGP has been able to do, whether there has been stability and so on. There are some certain factors that militated against the achievement or maybe implementation of the previous plans. We took those lessons along when we were trying to write this. We learned from the past. What was it? Why was it that some of these things were not implemented? There was no effective implementation, for instance. So that was one. And when we were doing it, this plan is inclusive. It's inclusive in the sense that there's something for everyone within the plan. The objective of the plan is to diversify the economy, support MSMEs, so that jobs, we can grow jobs for youth. We can have an inclusive thing for for people living with disability, for women, name it. Whichever way, wherever you are, there's something for the private sector. If you're a public servant, there are things that we think you should do so that we can grow the economy. So one objective is to diversify it. We have also another objective of the plan is that government is going to be investing in infrastructure. We have infrastructure deficits. That's one of the things that is constraining growth in the economy. So be it physical, financial, digital, the government is going to be doing that in this development plan that we have. We are also talking about security issues, and the security architecture of the economy will have to be, revamped so that, a lot of the things that security, a lot of the issues and concerns about security will have to be addressed. And finally, we are also talking about human capital development, health for the people, education, developing skills. So those are the broad objectives of this plan. And we have worked hard to make sure that implementation this time will not be, like what we had in the past.
So speaking of implementation, but before that, just to get you to reply to Mr. Yabagi's comment about this being a campaign strategy, and I mean, you'd understand why when that year before 2023 election. So some people might take anything that comes from government with a pinch of salt, thinking, is this a plan to sell the government? How do you respond to that?
Well, I don't think, we don't have to stop, we can't stop managing the economy because there's going to be election. We have to do the right things. There's need for a development plan, and we have a development plan. It doesn't matter whether it's at the start of a government, in the middle of a government, or towards the end of a government. And remember, this document is not going to stop with this administration. It's going to continue into the next administration. Other countries that have grown do not have all these start-stop policies and say because an administration is going away, then don't let us do it. Otherwise, it will be, regarded as a campaign instrument. It's not a campaign. I don't think. It's really not a campaign instrument. It's a developmental tool that we need. It's an instrument that we need to develop the economy, and we have to do it so that when another government comes, they take over from there, so that we can then see evidence of development in this country.
Right, so let's talk about implementation. Looking at the plan, a lot of people have called it ambitious. 348 trillion naira. Doing the math, that's about 20 times our 2022 budget, which, we're still struggling to finance. So implementation is a big deal for this kind of ambitious project. So let's start from that one. How do you plan to implement that?
Is a 348, almost 400 trillion budget for the 5 years from 2021 to 2025. And we are hoping that about 85% of that will be provided by the private sector. Government doesn't have that kind of money. And government will be providing just, I think, about 49 or 15% of the total amount that is required. And private sector will be expected to bring in the money for the others, for the other chunk of the development plan, financing the development plan.
Now, who's meant to drive this, essentially? Who is a drive? Because if the private sector is given a chunk of it, will it mean that the private sector would largely be responsible for this, or it will still be domiciled in government and driven by government?
It is a national development plan. We expect the private sector to be the engine of growth. It's domicile. The government will drive. There has to be somebody in the driver's seat. If there's someone, if the private sector is the engine of growth. So we do expect that the private sector will be able to participate, bring in money. We expect the government to have to provide a conducive environment for private sector to be able to invest in the various various areas of the plan.
So if the private sector will be given, 298 trillion, over 80% to that, how did you come about that that projection? Is it something that the private sector said, you know what, this is what we're able to give? Because, as I said, a lot of people say it is overly ambitious. So, how did we come about that figure? Is that from projection based on private sector's willingness, or how?
It's not 198. It's
200.
340.
No.
Three.
The private sector's contribution is what I'm talking about. 298.3 trillion for the private sector specifically.
We expect the private sector. You see, if you have the right incentives, private sector is willing to invest. And we expect that government will provide a conducive environment for the private sector to be able to invest in this economy. One of the things we have, which is new in this development plan, is a volume 3. We have a volume 1, which consists of the policies. We have a volume 2, which consists of the projects and programs that will drive the policies. And we have a volume 3, which consists of some of the reforms that government needs to do in order to achieve the kind of growth that we envisage. And some of those reforms are reforms that we be able to attract the private sector to invest in the economy. And if these things are done, the private sector, they look for business. They look for a way to make profits. They will definitely invest in the economy if we are able to do the right things.
Right. I just wanted to know the thinking behind that figure, 298 trillion. Was that something that the private sector, I know you worked, I mean, with state governors, state governments, different stakeholders in coming up with this. So I just want to know the thinking behind this 298 trillion. Was it a decision that the private sector said that, you know, this is what we're willing to come up with over this series of years?
We worked not only with government, but with private sector as well. We had 26 technical working groups with sector experts, and we had a model which has assumptions and targets, what we want to achieve, and then we came up with this. Yes, the plan is ambitious, but we have to be ambitious if we are going to grow this economy. We must be ambitious. And I believe that the private sector can finance that if we give them the right environment. If doing business, ease of doing business is there. We have there are legislative imperatives, there are gaps in some of our legislations. If we're able to address that, the private sector will definitely come up with this.
Well, Dr. Alade, I know that this conversation will definitely continue in the coming years, actually, because this is meant to terminate in 2025. But if you could leave Nigerians with this point, what are the biggest projects, what are the biggest changes that this development plan is meant to bring? If we could just leave Nigerians with that in about a minute.
You know, when we were doing this, we had taken into consideration the mega trends. Knowledge economy. We want to be a knowledge economy. We want to participate in the fourth industrial revolution. We are also thinking about the trade. The after trade is coming. So we didn't just do it as a domestic thing. We're looking at the international things and factors that are likely to affect, the economy in the coming years. So we are looking at not the Nigeria of today, but Nigeria of tomorrow, providing employment. The plan will provide about 21 million jobs and lift about 35 million people out of poverty. And it can be done if we address the implementation constraints.
Well, they say that the devil is in the details this time around. So the implementation is something we'll definitely still be taking up, perhaps with you in the coming days. But so far, I would like to thank you so much, Dr. Sarah Alade, Special Advisor to the President on Finance and the Economy. She's also Chairman, Central Working Group of the National Development Bank, National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, as well as a former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.